All right, in this episode of The World Around Us, we are going to be talking about the Krebs cycle. We're going to talk about the Krebs cycle. We're going to go really quick, so if you're going to be taking notes, make sure you know where the pause button is so you can stop and write things down. This is going to be, we're trying to overview this, trying to get a really broad view, make it accessible at a very introductory level. So we're starting with the Krebs cycle. Krebs cycle is part of cellular respiration, and the links to these images are down in the description, so if you want to see the original sources and read more about it, there it is. All right, cellular respiration begins with oxygen and food going into the cell, and then we have glycolysis, and then we have the Krebs cycle, and then we have the electron transport chain. Now, the entire purpose of cellular respiration is to create adenosine triphosphate that the body can use to do all the cellular functioning. So the stuff that goes into the cell, into cellular respiration, comes out of photosynthesis. We get the sugar and the oxygen from photosynthesis. Those are the inputs, oxygen and food, for cellular respiration. Now, this is a real important relationship between cellular respiration and photosynthesis, is that the products of cellular respiration are the inputs of, the reactants of photosynthesis. Now, if reactants and products and all the chemistry of biology is confusing, on my blog page I've put a page up sort of explaining chemical notation and reactants and products, so you can check that out. The link is in the description. All right, so now glycolysis begins the cellular respiration process. We're going to be talking about the Krebs cycle today. We're going to be talking about the Krebs cycle, where the products of glycolysis, so glycolysis creates these pyruvic acids, they come over and they get processed and they go into the Krebs cycle. So the Krebs cycle is the main purpose of the Krebs cycle, it's like a little factory system. This factory up here does something, and this factory over here is like, I can do an awful lot if you can send me some electrons. If you can send electrons, I can make a ton of ATP, but not actually a ton, in measure-wise, but metaphorically speaking, a ton of ATP, like 35 or 36 or 34, some large number comes out. But it needs electrons in order to get those. So the Krebs cycle is like, okay, I see what you did, glycolysis. I see what you did. I got an idea. First thing the Krebs cycle is going to do is going to take that pyruvic acid in. The pyruvic acid is going to go in, and the first thing that's going to happen is it's going to be converted into a 2-carbon acetyl CoA. Now, we've got to follow the carbons on this because the carbons and the glucose and carbons and all that go together. So the glucose that comes in is a big lot of carbons, and in each of those carbon bonds is some energy. So what we're trying to do through cellular respiration is convert the energy in those carbon bonds into the energy in the ATP bond, and the ATP then can go out into the cell to power cellular functioning. So that's what we're trying to accomplish with cellular respiration in the first place. Now, a lot of that's going to happen in the electron transport chain, which is going to be supplied electrons by the Krebs cycle, which is going to be supplied pyruvate by glycolysis. So that it all fits together into one giant system that creates somewhere between 36 and 38 ATP per glucose. So what we have is this 2-carbon acetyl is going to get put together with this oxaloacetate. It's going to form a 6-carbon citrate, also citric acid. Also, why the Krebs cycle is called the citric acid cycle. So now we have this 6-carbon thing, which reminds us of, might remind us of the Calvin cycle, where we're taking the 6s and the 5s and the 2s and undoing and redoing. It's kind of like an opposite process. So now we have this 6-carbon thing, and the Krebs cycle says, I can make these NADHs from this. And I can send the NADHs over. Now, what is NADH? NADH is an electron carrier. And this is one of those things that the name of it is what it is. It's like a cup carrier carries cups, a car carrier carries cars, an electron carrier carries electrons. And NADH is the electron carrier, one of the electron carriers in cellular respiration. Now you may go, wait, that sounds like the electron carrier in photosynthesis, the NADPH. How do you remember the difference? Now, this is how I remember the difference. Photosynthesis starts with a P, and NADPH has a P in it, and cytoplast is where the photosynthesis takes place. It also has a P in it. There's no P in mitochondrion. There's no P in cellular respiration, so there's no P in the electron carrier. That's how I remember it. NADH. We make 2 of those as we are processing the citric acid. You can see that we have a 6-carbon citrate here. We're going to chop off one of the carbons and make it into a 5-carbon thing, and that is going to create the NADH. Next step, you're going to chop off a carbon, get some energy out of there, make another NADH, send those guys over to the electron transport chain, where the electron transport chain is like, I need electrons, send me some more. It's like, I need electrons. So, okay, we'll send you some more. We get over here, and we begin putting back to this oxaloacetate 4, and we're going to kick off another electron carrier, the NADH2, and then we're going to kick off another NADH. So we're producing these, this is one cycle which is produced with one pyruvate. So one pyruvate is going to come in, it's going to get chopped off, and then it's going around, and we get the 6, and because 4 plus 2 is 6, and then 4, and then 5, and then 4, and then still 4, and then we get the 2 back, and it's a cycle. When you first look at it, you need to see all these parts at once. You can't just not have these other pieces, because you have to have this piece to start the process when the pyruvic acid is broken down into that. Now, a lot of numbers, a lot of carbons, a lot of letters. It's like a big alphabet soup. But what you need to know is that one pyruvic acid comes in, becomes a 6-carbon thing, and then as it swings through the system, NADH is created, FADH is created, and NADH is created, and those all go into the electron transport system. And it also creates 2 ATP along the way, and that's down here. Carbon comes out, and NADH comes out, and FADH2 comes out, and more NADH comes out. Sends all of that over to the electron transport chain. That is what is going on in the system. That's what is going on in the Krebs cycle. It's creating the 2 ATP, it's sending the NADH and the FADH2 out, and the electron transport chain. All that's going over, and we're going to get 32 to 34 ATP out of the electron transport chain, because the Krebs cycle took the pyruvate and sent all those electrons over. It's like, I need electrons. Also, the carbon dioxide came out there. I need electrons. Wow, that was fast. It was some liberties with the science, as we do, to try to make it accessible and approachable to everyone. But there you go. That's it. The Krebs cycle, part of cellular respiration. All right, I know it went fast, but we covered a lot of information, trying to get like a big picture overview of what's going on in the Krebs cycle. We got the carbons going around, kicking out the electron carriers that go over into the electron transport chain, which creates a lot of ATP. That's how cellular respiration works. Cellular respiration uses the products of photosynthesis, the glucose and the oxygen, and it creates the byproducts of cellular respiration are the reactants for photosynthesis, the oxygen and the water that come out. So we have this reciprocal relationship between the 2 processes, one creating the glucose, one breaking the glucose down.